I was in commercial real estate for 12, 13 years. I loved that space. I was a broker. I ran an office, and I loved it. You have built again, $2.27 billion portfolio, 3.7 million square feet. There's a lot of people who want to get into the space. There's a lot of people who are in the space and want to grow in the space. And
Right.
so, what would your three kind of I don't want to say best pieces of advice, but three pieces of advice, three fundamental pieces of advice that you would give people who want to start and or grow their commercial real estate business?
Um, Great question. I think that the most important thing for any individual is to fully understand what's their value proposition to the market. What is your strong suit? What is it that the market or your client really need? It used to be back in the day, as I said, I'm doing it for many years. It used to be back in the days, coming up with information, coming up with some analysis would have been super paramount. But we're now living in an age now with billions of dollars spent by Silicon Valley and trying to disrupt and actually disrupting the commercial real estate industry and the real estate industry in general. So information has become less available, less proprietary to what we used to have back in the day. Brokers used to have access to all things. I sometimes say today that people today have access to all things, but understand the value of almost nothing. So bringing more information to an already inundated market is extremely diminished. It wasn't the
Yeah,
case back in the day. Today, value add proposition, if your personality is such that you're able to come in and break through and create relationships and break through the ice and break through the walls that people put up between yourself as a salesperson and what is it that they need, then you already have
yeah,
the upper hand. You have to be likable. People like to do business with people like themselves. You have to be
yeah,
likable. That's the first thing. Second of all, you want to bring value, right? What is the value proposition that you bring? We obviously, as brokers, maybe as investors, we always have somebody that we want to talk to in order to convince them to do certain things. Way back in the day, is on the brokerage side of the business, I would come in and bring a piece of information that I would consider that maybe a lot of people have overlooked. Maybe I knew something, right? Also, it's a very inefficient market. And so my conversations and my contacts would have been my strong suit because I would gain the trust of the folks that would hire me to represent them, and I would do a very, very methodical work in order to, sell a transaction or raise capital and so on. So the first thing is understand what it is that you have. What's your value proposition? The second thing is, you're working in a very fast-paced market. It's a highly competitive market, whether it is in New York, Los Angeles, Miami. The only way for you to kind of like be ahead of the curve is really work hard. It's actually work
yeah,
hard. There's no shortcuts, right? There's no shortcuts. We've pivoted from the brokerage 8 years ago, from the brokerage into the private equity, but there's no shortcuts, right? We've changed the dance where before we used to kind of like, try to convince sellers to buy property. Now it's actually us that needs to be convinced to acquire those properties. But you got to be a very hard worker and you got to be very methodical. Overly be super organized and very, very methodical. Spend the time necessary to walk the geographical location that you are choosing to work in. Understand the locations, understand who the players are, and make sure you create those relationships and do it on a very systematic basis. So that's a very important thing. And ultimately, keep a good name and a reputation because that's your calling card. If you say something to somebody, own your word. Own your word. That's the one thing. That's the one thing we take with us.
yeah,
Anywhere, it can strip us from everything. It can strip us from our money. It can strip us from the cars. It can strip us from our assets. You can't strip us from our word. That's something that belongs to you. So own it. If you mean it, say it. And if something happens and you couldn't stay true to your word because you wish for something to happen, but didn't quite happen, then own it. Okay, be the first
yeah.
one to say, I've tried, it didn't work. I'm really sorry. Let's see how we can correct it, or let's go our separate ways. So own
Yeah,
your word. Make sure that your reputation stays intact.
yeah. I love that. Right. All we have is our name, our brand, our intellectual capital, our word. I love that. And there's no shortcut to hard
No,
work.
no
You know,
no
right.
shortcuts.
There's no shortcuts, and there's no going viral, and there's no, it just is grind it out every single day. And
Absolutely.
consistency compounds, Joe. I talk about that all the time with people I coach. It's like,
Hmm.
the small things done consistently compounds. Big things done once in a while, they don't compound.
That's right.
So it's great. It's great.